Hello everyone. Today, I'm going to explain episode 1. This boy's Jamal Wallace, a normal high school student majoring in language and literature. He and his friends are just like other teenagers, spending most of their time hating school, but besides is actively playing basketball with his friends, which led him to play for the school. He was also good at writing. Every day he and his friends spent their time training in the nearest court. They were a regular at that court. They eat when had a mysterious spectator from the nearest apartment they used to call the window man. They often talk about him in their school and thought the man was a killer that deliberately hid in that apartment. None of them had ever seen the figure before. One day when the jungle's friends challenged anyone to check the apartment, and Jamal took the chance to show his friends he was brave enough. The next day was Mother Mrs. Choice was called to the school by most homeroom teacher, telling her that her son's grade was not enough for him to pass, but despite that his teacher still couldn't believe such a good writer like Jamal couldn't survive class. His writing was admirable compared to his grades. One night Jamal and his friends planned to get into the old man's apartment. Jamal entered via the fire escape and managed to enter through an unlocked window because he thought the old man was already asleep and the lights were off. Anyway, he went in there and take a few things as proof that he had conquered the challenge. Jamal didn't expect that the place was full of books he never read before. That actually made them all interested. Stably, he didn't know that the old man had not slept. As soon as the old man woke up, Jamal immediately left there. Unfortunately, Jumbal's bag was left in the old man's apartment. The next day, Jal was ridiculed by his friends because, instead of taking things from the apartment, instead left his bag there. They were worried if the old man found out Kimmel's identity. That day Jamal was practicing basketball until that afternoon when he saw one of the apartment residents come in a BMW. It turned out that apart from poetry, Jamal was also interested in cars, especially BMWs. Initially, Jewel's arrival was not accepted because this man was worried that your mole with touches car, but Jamal immediately told the history of BMW. The man, he couldn't say anything but was silence and amazement at you most broad knowledge. After two into that man, Jamal was shocked because the old man threw his bag and returned it from his apartment. He then checked the bag when was home and found nothing missing, but instead, all of his writing was praised and corrected, and thankfully was a big help to improve his writing. After receiving such good feedback, he decided to return to the place the next day. He started by apologizing after breaking into the apartment that night. He also said that he wanted the old man to help him with his writing, but instead of getting a warm welcome, he was tasked to write 5,000 words essay. Before returning there, he immediately did that task on the very same night and went back to that apartment to bring him what he had written. The old man did not expect similar to carry out his task, but unfortunately the old man still didn't accept him all there and told him to leave. Annoyed, Jamal left his writing front of the door. One day at school, Mrs. Choice and Jamal were called to the principal's office because of Jewel's unsatisfactory test scores. The principal offered to transfer Jamal to a private school. Mrs. Joyce was surprised at the instance because she knew she wouldn't be able to afford the fee, but suddenly, a man named David Bradley interfered. He was a representative of the private school. He said that the school would provide a scholarship for Jamal because they were interested in his basketball game. Bradley said that he was very happy if Jamal considered playing because there were so many of that school who become professional players. Before going home, Jamal went back to the apartment to meet the old man and to check whether he took the paper he left or not. He didn't saw the paper had gone from its place, and though thought that the old man had taken it from there. He then decided to wait outside while continuing his writing when suddenly the old man opened the door for him for the first time. That was the first time he was invited to the place. While waiting for the old man to scribble on his writing, Jamal told the old man who he was. He was only a 16-year-old boy who lived with his mother and siblings, living meal crowley while his father was an addict who had left their family. After the old man finished correcting his writing, he praised Jamal for his skill is by being black and young. One day Jamal went to the private school that offered him the scholarship. The view met school is completely different from where he came from. There he met Claire, a girl student who was assigned to show Jamal around the school. Claire then and lighted Jamal to attend a literature class. On that occasion, the teacher gave the task to all the students present to write a book by a famous author named William Forrester. After finishing, Jamal was told to come back tomorrow, but Jamal said that he would do a trial run on the basketball court tomorrow morning. Long story short, the next morning Jamal had a trial match because the coach wanted to see him play. Jamal initially wanted to be friendly to a player named John, but he couldn't seem to be friendly with Jamal. Thanks it, an intense and provocative game between them ensued. According to Claire, John is just a rich kid who wanted to get all the attention. General realized that at this school he had to face everything seriously. On that occasion, Claire, who loved to read books, showed Jamal and old William Forrester book that she got from her father. When he saw the front cover of the book, Jamal was surprised that William Forrester, the well-known author of a well-known literary book, was the old man he knew. Jamal immediately said goodbye to Claire and left. That night GMO came to the old man's house and asked for help with an assignment given at school to write about one of the books written by William Forster. Of course you will also immediately ask if he was really William Forster or to the author of a famous book, the author of a novel that received an international award. At first Jamal was scolded and the old man refused to talk about himself, but in the end he tried to open up to Jamal and told him that he was really William Forster, but he asked Jamal to keep secret whatever happened to the two of them to other people, including he who often helped Jamal in correcting his writings. Forster gave Jamal that condition if he wanted him to continue giving suggestions on Jim's writings. Jamal was forbidden to argue or ask questions about himself and also his family. Another day at school, our teacher Robert said that our writing contest that year have been scheduled and students who want to participate in the contest had to submit their writing before the school holidays. As you forest or get a lesson. Jamal said that people at school, especially his teacher, were wrong in judging Forster's personality because they discussed Forster's book at school every day. Forster said it didn't matter how others judged him because he couldn't clarify the truth anyway. Forster then touched them all, and the first rule to writes to pay attention to what he was working on. That writing is not thinking, meaning that he only needed to pour out what he felt in his heart, because writing that comes from the heart will touch the heart of those read it. Jamal was shocked. Within just a minute Forster was immediately able to write so easily. When Jamal was stuck in writing, Forster told Jamal to start one paragraph from his old work to stimulate Jamal's way of writing. Forster reminded Jamal that everything he wrote in an apartment should not leave from there. Jamal then tried to write for the school assignments when he was at home. Next day Jem will still have the competition of John, and it got more intense, the point that the coach punished them by throwing the ball into the ring. Unexpectedly a managed the for 50 throws about failing single throw. After practice Robert called Jamal and said that your most writing had a significant improvement. Robert didn't believe it when Jamal said that the writing was just written by him. Laughed the night when you moment Forster he told him about the praise Robert had given, but he realized that the compliment was an honest. Forster even said that he knew Robert. Forster said that Robert had written a book a year after Forrest to release his work, but no publisher wanted to publish it. After that, instead of reading another book, Robert became a teacher and taught other people to write. Such a teacher could be a good teacher or the other way around. Long story short, General finally faced his first match together with the school basketball team. Unexpectedly Jamal played well that night and scored a lot of points. Fly, his old school friend, came to congratulate him and asked him to go to a party with him, but Jomo reluctantly refuses the invitation because he had to attend the school party that night at Claire's house. After all, her father was the head of the school board. In a place surrounded by important people, Jimbo got several offers because it is good game on the field earlier. Gemma's achievements certainly caught the attention of Claire, that started to show interest in him. They weakened closer and started talking a lot. Even though Claire was one of the rich kids at the school, not only his basketball skills had improved, but most ability to write was also getting better. You'd Forrester praise him. Jimbo managed to make an old work by Forrester into his own work with his own writing style. At that time General asked if people out there still read Forrester's book, so Forrest asked Jimbo to make a bet and check it the other day. Jamal then went to the library, and sure enough Forrest's book was still read by everyone, even had a waiting list. After losing the bet, Jamal had of buy Forrester dinner. While eating dinner, Jamal told Forrester about the writing contest held at his school. He said that his writing had to be read in front of many people. Forrester said that writing should be read by other people, not the writer. Forrester said that the book review event was just to impress the opposite, so Forrester advised Jamal to give unexpected gifts at unexpected times. After wanted to impress the girl he desired, so on another day Jomo gave Forrest's book complete with his signature and made Claire happy with a gift. One time at school, Robert told the prince couple a Jumble might have plagiarized the writing he made. Robert said that Jamal was just a basketball player, and there was no way he could have written such a good writing like that. Robert seemed to be jealous of Jumo and still couldn't believe in his skill. Robert didn't know that almost every day Jumo was trained by famous writer, who trained Jamal's way of thinking in an unusual way. So it's not surprising June's writing style is more or less similar to Forrester's, but still, that didn't mean that Jumo plagiarized or took Forrester's unpublished works. Before Jamal went home, he accidentally saw a photo album, and the apartment is a photo album of Forrester's childhood with his family. Although Forrester refused to tell personal things about him, Jamal was still able to get to know Forrester through the photo album. One day, Jumble to Forrester out to watch his basketball match. Forrester Webb, and locking himself away from society for years, was not feeling well in a crowd, and was not used to it. Moreover, he was separated from Jomal in the crowd, which got him panic attacks and anxiety. Luckily, Jamal managed to find him again and chose to take him away from the crowd. Before going home, Jamal, with the help of his brother Terrell, took Forrest to a baseball stadium, or Forrest used to watch some matches with his family back then. Kimmel the of a surprise to Forrest or because it turned out that it was his birthday. For the first time since they were friends, Forrest or talked about his family. How he and his brother used to get along very well until the war changed his brother. Forrester was not from around the city, but he used as a lot of memories with his family there, even all of them died in that city. That nature more accidentally made forced to remember his family who had left him for decades. One time Jamal was called by Robert at his office. He found out Jamal's improvement was way too fast considering his background, his former school's reputation. Robert drew a conclusion: either Jamal was talented where he was coming plagiarism. For this reason, 2 weeks from that day, Jumo was ordered to meet him again and told to write directly in front of him. Of course, he was annoyed about that and told that to Forrester. Forrester thought that Robert couldn't understand why such a young man from a bad school could write with such a quality. We're told Jamal to accept the challenge to prove himself to Robert. 2 weeks later, Jamal once again met Robert and did what he was told to, but despite what Robert saw with his own eyes, he still thought that Jumo had plagiarized Forrester's wish work. Even after that, Jomal still sent his writing to be included in the writing contest. Later in class, Robert taught a quote from a famous poet and ordered a student who was not paying attention to explain his opinion about the poll, and ended up humiliating him. Jamal couldn't stand but help his classmate. Seen that Robert tried mocking Jamal by saying that Jules' knowledge might be better than his basketball career. To respond to the humiliation, Jamal corrected the words that Robert misused. Even when Robert challenged Jamal to continue the quote from the book, Jamal could easily finish it. After losing in his own game, Robert told Jumo to leave the class. Jamal was annoyed because he was kicked out. Other day, Jamal was summoned again by Robert at this time along with the school's principal and Claire's father. Jamal was accused of plagiarizing Forrester's work which he submitted for the writing contest, and this time unfortunately Robert had proof. Robert showed a work of Forrest or in a magazine that was published in 1960. Jules' writing had the same title and resemblance as the first paragraph of the work. Jamal was told to confess, but he couldn't be honest because he had promised to never talk about Forrester to anybody. Jamal was told to write an apology letter, otherwise his scholarship would be revoked and he would be forbidden to play basketball. Before leaving from there, Robert said that this was his punishment because Jamal had embarrassed him in front of the class. After Jim talked about it to Forrester, he was shocked because what Jamal wrote there shouldn't left there. Jamal was annoyed because Forrester never told him that the title had already been published. General asked Forrester for help to explain to the school that he had received permission from Forrester himself. He used the work, but Forrest immediately refused to help. The two began arguing. Jamal was disappointed because Forrester didn't want to help him. It was afraid to leave the apartment. On the other hand, Forrester also had his own reasons. Shortly after, Jamal and his team were about to face the final match of the tournament. Claire's father, the head of the school board, offered to defend Jamal if he could fend the champion's trophy. Jamal agreed without any hesitation. The match was intense. The teams took turns in scoring to win the match. Jamal and John became the most reliable, but their team is still 1 point behind when the time was about to run out. Jamal managed to get fouled to get 2 free throws to secure the win. Everyone believed in Jamal and the whole team knew Jamal could score easily, but the pressure that mate was different. He failed to score a single throw and failed to bring the trophy home. Everyone was disappointed with the result, including Forrester, who watched the match from home. After being considered a talented player for months, that May he was a big loser. To cheer himself up, Jamal went to the public library where he wrote a letter to Forrester. When he returned home, Terrell found Jamal's letter for Forrester on the tea table, so the next morning he decided to deliver it to Forrester. Said that the letter was written by Jamal right after the game. The next day, Jamal went to the writing contest symposium. His arrival surprised Robert and all his friends. Even though he was eliminated as a participant, Jamal just wanted to see the other participants read their work. When Robert was about to close the event, unexpectedly William Forrester was there and asked permission to say a few words. Of course, Forrester was welcomed. Jamal was surprised to see Forrester. He was curious about Forrester's reason to come to a school. On the podium, without further ado, Forrester could easily introduce himself as a famous writer because his portrait was put on the wall. There he read off the writing he brought, and with his charismatic demeanor everyone was bewitched by what he just read. After reading the essay, Forrester immediately left the podium. Robert praised the writing the Forrester just read as an amazing work with beautifully arranged words, but Forrest immediately clarified by saying that he came for a friend, was not allowed to talk gentle Wallace. Robert was surprised to hear that Jamal was a friend William Forrester. Jamal and proven that he had integrity by not mentioning the figure of Orrin. Forrester confirmed that yesterday's writing was originally made by Jumo, but Robert still didn't change his decision and not to include Jamal in the contest. Or immediately replied by saying that the writing he read just now was a letter written by Jamal. The principal will immediately took over and said that the school would release Jamal from the trial with the school board. Will finally left the room with his head held high after such a comeback. After that, Forrest told Jamal that there were no more lessons he could teach, and then his letter had moved his heart. Forrester decided to leave his apartment and would go to his hometown in Scotland. Finally, without saying goodbye, Forrester law Jamal. A year in the past, and Will still went to the school. He received many offers for scholarships to college. One day a lawyer met him at the school. The lawyer represented William Forrester. After a year there without news, he turned out the Forrester had died of cancer. Below lower then gave Forrester's inheritance to Jamal, consisting of an apartment key and on all the books in it. After receiving inheritance, Umble invited his mother and brother to move there. In a final scene of draft of a novel by William Forrest, and Jamal Wallace was shown as the last work of William Forrester. Thank for your watching this video.